Cambodians, Cambodian Americans, we have to be stubborn seekers of our own form identities. We have to be vigilantly holding on to the tongues, the sounds, the tastes, the dance, the legacies of our mothers and fathers. That has become our true calling.
Cambodian American filmmaker Caylee So has found her voice in telling immigrant stories. Two of her acclaimed films deeply explore the Cambodian American experience and identity. Right now, Caylee So is directing a new immigrant family drama, The Harvest, a Southeast Asian story written by Hmong American actor Doua Moua, who also stars in it.
It's a Hmong American family drama about a strange son who returns home to take care of his ailing father.
The 41-year-old filmmaker said that stories and families reflecting that of her own refugee experience are rarely featured on the big screen.
The Hmong community, much like the Cambodian community, also immigrated to the United States roughly around the same time, and they were highly affected by the Vietnam War. There's just a lot of post-traumatic trauma that happened there, and so we really wanted to talk about like the relationship between like fathers and sons and mothers and daughters, and what it means to meld those culture and what it means to kind of like preserve culture, and how much do we hold on to it, how much does it kind of evolve, how do we want our culture to evolve.
The Harvest is expected to premiere in 2023. Caylee So said it is an honor to use her immigrant background and filmmaking craft to tell the universal stories of family and love from the Hmong perspective.
I've directed films in, I want to say 5 different languages. For me, I think that like what connects us, what we have in common is a lot more than what separates us. So for me, it was very easy to understand the story because it's the story of like me and my parents or you and your parents, and it's very relatable. And I think it's the story of every family. And I think in that sense, it wasn't hard to kind of get into that mindset or to do research on it. The most important thing is to understand the history of the Hmong people, to try to capture maybe the authenticity, to work with the Hmong community to portray the specific of their Hmong culture inside the film. But as far as the story goes, I think it's very universal.
After earning her Master of Fine Arts in Film Production at California Chapman University, Caylee So made her name in directing the award-winning short Paulina in 2012. She followed that in 2018 with the full-length feature In the Life of Music. So also co-founded the annual Cambodia Town Film Festival in Long Beach, California, which showcases the very best in Cambodian cinema. In late 2019, just before the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak hit the US, VOA attended Seoul's 7th annual film festival and talked with her about her life and career in filmmaking and about her previous Cambodian American films before The Harvest. បាទសូមជម្រាបសួរ បាទ Caylee So Cambodian American co-founder of Cambodian Town Film Festival and also the director of the recent movie In the Life of Music និយាយខ្មែរបានតិចៗ
ខ្ញុំនិយាយបានតិចៗដែរ
បាទចាំមានឈ្មោះខ្មែរ
ចម្រុង
បាទ So first of all I want to congratulate you on the film for being selected to represent Cambodia in the Oscar. The story is the most important thing in making film. And you did all of that. So bring us back to the moment when you start thinking about the story and writing it up.
Yeah, so I think I was on an airplane and I had just come back from Cambodia, and I had been inspired by a young filmmaker, and I had just recently watched Don't Think I've Forgotten, Cambodia's Last Rock and Roll. And the music like stayed with me for, it just like was mind-blowing how much music was kind of, musician was lost in the killing fields. And so when I went to Cambodia and I had like, just ate and drank with all these filmmakers and we were talking about stories and idea, and then a filmmaker would talk to me about making a short film, and I knew I didn't want to make another short film, but I knew that I wanted to do a feature. So I came up with the idea of getting 3 directors together to make a feature. So that's how it started. And then I knew that it would be tied together by a song, and that would be like the common thread.
That song is Champa Bat Dam Bong by legendary Cambodian singer-songwriter Sinsi Samut. Widely considered the king of Khmer music, he dominated the country's thriving pop and rock music scenes in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Sinsi Samut was one of the 1.7 million people who died of starvation, overwork, disease, and execution during the communist Khmer Rouge regime in the late 1970s. His widely popular song, Champa Bat Dam Bong, is known by many Cambodian families ripped apart by the war. Cambodian American filmmaker Caylee So used the song in her feature film, In the Life of Music, to help tell the Cambodian story in 3 different periods: before, during, and after the Khmer Rouge genocide.
And also, I had always wanted to kind of like imagine what a love story in Cambodia would be like, because I had never really seen it before the war. So that was very important to me, to tell a 1968 love story. So my initial pitch was that it was going to be a story about people who fall in love before the war, a songwriter who gets killed off during the war, and a young woman who returns to find her roots after the war 2 decades later. So those were the 3 stories that I wanted to combine. And I thought it would be a story about love. I thought it would be a story about war. I thought it would be a story about the return to home.
Do you see yourself in the story as a Cambodian American, escaping the country, escaping the war, coming to America and then going back, try to understand your roots?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the character of Hope is, I feel like it's universally what all of my generation is. So I tried to write a character that would represent my generation, who are Cambodian American, who somewhere along the line had to learn about our history ourselves because, our parents couldn't talk about it, who went back to Cambodia at some point between 2007, 2011 to connect to the roots.
I told her everything I see, she sees too.
When Caylee So was casting her feature, In the Life of Music, the 35-year-old Cambodian-Canadian Hollywood actress Ellen Vong embodied the character Hope.
You played the lead role, Hope, in the Life of Music movie. And coming in, what was your expectation?
I was going to be working and shooting in Cambodia, and I knew that it was going to be different there. Not just because, I'd never worked there before, but also just there were going to be so many emotions and feelings and things that were really close to home for me.
In the 90-minute film, her character Hope gets to learn about what her mother went through before and during the Khmer Rouge. In the process, Hope rediscovers her own roots and identity.
In the Life of Music is such an important film because it is about the history of what our parents went through, but it's about the journey of a girl who's really got her foot in 2 different worlds and is trying to fit into both and make herself feel whole.
Ellen Wong was born in Canada to Chinese Cambodian refugee parents who fled to Canada because of the Khmer Rouge genocide. Growing up, she said she didn't meet a lot of Cambodians and her parents didn't really talk about what happened to the family. Wong said she sees herself in the character Hope.
I know, at least for me growing up, I wanted so much to just fit in and to just feel like I was like everyone else around me, that I wanted to be as as Canadian as possible, like as Western as possible. And so there is sometimes that gap where you feel like you try to push away your true like identity, the thing that makes the part that makes you who you are as well. And knowing about your family's history, I think, is incredibly important and is part of who you are and is something that needs to be continually passed down.
And it is this insight, So says, that makes Wong the perfect person to play Hope. Now I want to go back to your root a little bit. As a scriptwriter, as a filmmaker, and you go to college to study creative writing, writing stories and films. I want you to tell your story with setup, climax, and resolution as a filmmaker. Briefly describe your story.
In my undergrad, I started off as a business major. And at 18 years old, I joined the Army. And when I was deployed to Iraq, I had a moment where I was watching this movie called $1 Million Baby. And when I was watching that movie, I felt so sad for the main character, Maggie, who had this dream of becoming this boxer. And she had discovered it pretty late in life, and she was still trying to pursue it. And I was so sad by the circumstances of what happened to her that I was in the middle of this war. And I was watching this bootleg copy of the movie. And I was trying not to cry in front of all these soldiers. And I remember thinking that, oh, that's what a director does. So then I changed my major from a business major to a creative writing major so that I could learn how to tell stories. And then after I had done my undergrad, bachelor's degree in creative writing, I applied for film school. But I was deployed for a second tour in Iraq. And then we did that, and then I came back and I became a filmmaker.
All right.
So I was like the character Maggie. I was started so late in life. I came in, I was 28 years old. I was going into film class, and I looked around, and I was like the oldest person there, and I had no film experience, and it was just, I was like, I gotta catch up.
Okay, so setup, what is it? Going to Iraq?
Yeah.
And then climax, watching the film, the resolution pursuing film.
Yes.
Interesting. Caylee So quickly built her filmmaking craft and won the 2011 Zonta's Women in Film Grant for Most Promising Young Filmmaker, the 2013 Linda Mayblott's New Vision New Director Award, and a number of other honors at her school. Before she discovered filmmaking, So's life was not on a creative path. She was born in 1981 in a refugee camp in Thailand, soon after her parents escaped the Khmer regime. 3 years later, So's family settled in Northern Virginia, United States, where she graduated high school in 2000 and moved on to spend 8 years serving in the Virginia Army National Guard. So's decision shocked her war-scarred family.
To be honest with you, I didn't know how they would react to it. I just knew that, I wanted to create my own path and kind of my own opportunities, and to give back to them. And so when I came home and told them that, I think there was this sadness in my mom's eyes. And I think it's because she went through the war and she didn't want her daughter to go through war, which was, yeah.
How did you deal with that?
In retrospect, I didn't think about that until years later when I started making films that kind of connected to the killing fields. And then when I get asked about it, and I try to recall it, I thought, oh, I never thought about it from her perspective. What would it be like for her to have escaped a war and to come to America? And then her daughter's like, hey, Mom, I just joined the Army.
I want to go back to war.
Yeah, well, this was before 9/11. So there's a moment of peace,
Yet So's decision to enlist became a pivotal point in her life as it helped her realize her passion for filmmaking. Your career now is basically all about creativity. It's a creative profession.
Yeah.
Telling story, making visual, sound, whatever, telling a very creative way, engaging way. How did your background as a child of immigrant coming to a new country or going to war in Iraq as a U.S. Army soldier, How did that actually connect or build up to you becoming a creative person like you are now?
I think maybe I figured out that I have a unique voice with unique stories that haven't been told before. Like, being a Cambodian in a U.S., army, or just being a child of immigrants, trying to, communicate to the world what it is that, like, you are. I think that kind of voice in filmmaking today is rare, and I always get asked, what is it like to be a Cambodian female American filmmaker?
Are there a lot of challenges with all this thing going on?
You know what? I didn't take those things into consideration when I became a filmmaker. Just like I didn't take into consideration that I was going to be a female in the army. So I just said, hey, a director make films, so I'm going to do it. I didn't take in my Cambodian roots or my American roots or my female roots. I just thought it was something that was inspiring to me to be able to tell stories. And the stories that I wanted to tell were the one that was my reflection, or reflected about our history, culture, whatever.
Caylee So's niche is telling Cambodian American stories. She says embracing dual identities as a Cambodian American allows her to pursue her filmic voice. You mentioned before in other interviews and all that, you said that you want Cambodian American to embrace dual identities.
Yes.
What is Cambodian American? How is it different from being just Cambodian or being just American?
When I was growing up, I felt very American, but at the same time, I felt a sense of isolation. And it wasn't until I figured out what it was that made me feel so different from everyone else. Or, I went to a high school where there was only like 3 Cambodians and the other 2 was my cousin, so it wasn't like a big community. And when I embraced that part of my culture or my history or my ancestry, that was when I felt like I became a fuller person, having a better understanding of who I was, why there was some nuances about myself that was like a little bit different than like my friends or the people I was going to school with. Like I had this whole other history, or like, my relationship with my parents is a lot different than maybe my friend's relationship with their parents, I'm not saying that being American is not enough. I'm just saying that I'm both, so I should embrace both. And I talk to a lot about the newer generations about this. I always think there's a moment where they are curious about this other side or this their ancestry, and I think it's just a matter of time where they want to explore that, just like I did in my mid-20s.
ប៉ាមាន16ហើយមាន20មក20ប៉ាអស់មួយទៀតទេ
Should say.
In 2012, graduate student Caylee So directed her first award-winning short film, Paulina. Told from a Cambodian American perspective, the film depicts the life of a 17-year-old teen growing up in a community of gamblers in Southern California.
យើងមានលៀប
It's late. It's time to go home.
ឲ្យវានៅសិនហ្នឹងវាកំពុងតែឈ្នះហ่ะហើយមានលុយខ្លះឲ្យប៉ាខ្ចីបានចាំប៉ាឈ្នះចាំប៉ាសង
Are you going somewhere? I made some salama chuttikon. You eat yet? Already ate at work.
Paulina!
កូនឯងអាចខ្ចីលុយសុភាពឲ្យប៉ាខ្លះបានទេ ចាំប៉ាឈ្នះប៉ាសងសុភាពវិញ
No, I'm gonna hold it for you until they
អ
come.
ត់អីទេកូនអត់អីទេ
Give it to me.
អត់អីទេ
Ba.
កូន
Ba.
កូន
I want you to stop going there.
We're only going for a couple hours.
A couple hours, a couple minutes, what does it matter? Look at your face. You choose that house, and this house won't be here for you anymore.
Paulina received overwhelmingly positive reactions from Seoul's Cambodian American community, despite her initial concern of a backlash due to the negative nature of the topic. The 30-minute film made its ways to Cambodia, where film students started studying its 2012 release. So says this helped her contribute to rebuilding Cambodia's film industry. So how about the idea of an open society that allow people to freely express themselves? And you as a filmmaker, your story, would it be possible if you are in a closed society? For example, if you're just Cambodian, not Cambodian American? Would you be a successful maker you are today if you were not Cambodian American or just living in Cambodia, doing film from Cambodia?
I don't know how to answer that because I think that a lot of my craft comes from my education, and that's the route that I've taken, is to go and learn and then just make as many films as possible. But then there are people in Cambodia who are just as good as me, or who are just as good as me, but who are maybe even better, and they're just learning from doing. So, I mean, I think there's a combination of both, and it just depends on, like I said, creative practice.
In America, you are allowed to say anything.
Yes.
To show anything. A
Yeah.
woman, even nudity, sometimes. Some taboo activity. In Cambodia, it's very strict. Like, you cannot use word that is rude or really bad, sexual, or anything like that. How is it different from a storytelling perspective as a filmmaker in Cambodia and in America?
I definitely think it's a roadblock because it's, I mean, if it's a cultural thing, if it's authentic to your story, that your character do say these words or write for the story, I think it'd be great if the filmmaker can tell it the way that is authentic to the story. So in that respect, I feel like there's a lot more freedom here because I could think about a scene and I don't have to think about whether it's going to be approved by a government agency.
But how was your experience? Did anyone in Cambodia screen your film and then say, "This, you cannot do that"?
We did not get that, no. We did not get that. But we also sent our script for approval before we filmed. And there wasn't anything that they said we couldn't do. But I felt like with our story, there wasn't much in there that I think the government would have disapproved of that wasn't already explored, like the killing fields, that storyline has been explored by other filmmakers. So by now, the Cambodian government is probably used to it.
Industry-wide, the whole film industry in Cambodia. A lot of people always say that not enough support in film. There's no law to protect intellectual property. There's no money in doing it. People don't want to pay money to see your movie or whatever like that. What do you say to that? Is it different? The experience you did film in Cambodia and America.
Yeah, but I feel like In the Life of Music is a collaboration of a Cambodian film and an American film. So we utilize both resources. And in some cases, like when we were filming in Cambodia, there was such a passion. Like there was such an urgency to making this film. I don't want to be a half outsider coming inside and not fully knowing from a Cambodian filmmaker has a different experience than a Cambodian American filmmaker. I could go in there and have more support than a person who's fully Cambodian inside the country trying to make a film. Because I think that there's more resources that a Cambodian American could acquire. I don't like saying that, but I think it might be maybe half true.
That's true. Where do you see the film industry in Cambodia going?
I hope it's going up because I see so many different filmmakers are trying to make these incredible stories and they're excited about it, and there's this energy that's happening over there, and I hope that they keep inspiring this energy instead of telling them that's not the kind of stories that we want to see. Because there's a film at the film festival called V+, and people that watch it, it's like, oh, this movie is good. Like, why didn't it do well in Cambodia? And then people in Cambodia is like, it's not a genre film. That's not what we go to the movie theater to watch. So hopefully that change, and the more films that are, I guess, of this narrative that comes out of Cambodia that is being supported by the theaters will hopefully kind of grow the audience. Yeah.
So what needs to happen to have a healthy and thriving film industry, Cambodian industry, like in America? Now we have technology, we have a lot of young people wanting passion, like you said, passionate to do film. But what else needs to happen?
I think that we have to have people who wants to invest in the arts to help grow the arts.
Like, who are they?
Like, here they have film grants, right? Like, everywhere you go, they have documentary grants, they have feature film grants, they have, ways and routes and organizations that help you tell your story. Sundance, like the LA Council, you name it, there's so many councils, and so that's why they're generating so many films and so many art. Because in America, you realize that the arts is very important, because the arts preserve history, and plays a role in kind of increasing the enjoyment or increasing the knowledge or increasing information. So in America, we embrace that. The arts is very important. In Cambodia, I feel like it's a little bit different, because there's still people kind of like struggling to just live, and so when those mediums.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
We're going there, hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Last question. As a filmmaker, as a creative person, what do you think is your role for your countries, Cambodia and America?
Well, I always get asked if I will ever make anything other than a Cambodian film. And I always say that I am going to make films and I'm going to tell stories that inspire me in the moment. And it doesn't have to be Cambodian, it doesn't have to be American, but whatever it is, because I have told the story in Spanish, I had told the story in an African language. I feel that there's this universality in all our experiences, and mine just happen to be Cambodian. So if that inspires me, I'm going to keep making Cambodian films. And our next project is probably going to be fully Cambodian American. And that's the thing that I'm excited about now, because we made our Cambodian film. We're going to make a Cambodian American film, and we'll see where it takes us. But I'm not going to, just stop at, saying I made a Cambodian film.
Any film in the pipeline? No, not yet.
We do. We have a couple films in development right now, and yeah.
Exciting. Well, thank you, Caylee, for letting us talk to you about your career and your life, and even bringing us here to the theater where you actually do the Cambodian Town Film Festival. And we are sitting right right behind the screen here that people watch, and the audience here. Thank you so much, and good luck with your career, and I look forward to watching your future movies.
Oh yeah, thank you. Akun.
Chào mừng